These are interesting times, and at the moment we're not showing houses in physical terms. Well, we're not able to go and open the door and say ta-da and show a house. So what we're doing is a lot of agents are doing video and video things, doing walkthroughs that sellers have created, and that is a useful thing to do. But what I wanted to share with you is some things that you can do from your sofa. So the infamous Phil and Kirsty do always talk about location, location, location. And it does matter. It really does matter, because where, you've probably realized now, where you live does make a difference to how you live your life. And if you've got green space close to you now, you've got places you can walk to a shop, you can use your car less, and your GP might be shut, ours is shut, but I can still walk and get prescriptions from the pharmacy. Having these things close by can be really important. So I met a client. He was actually viewing a property that I was showing, and he said, well, this has been amazing because this is a 2-bedroom flat and we've been here for more than half an hour. And I said, well, that's what I do. He said, well, we've been in other properties where the agent has been hustling us out after 10 minutes. And he said, frankly, I spend more time choosing a shirt than this guy expected me to spend choosing somewhere I want to live. So given that can be the experience, there's plenty that you can do from your sofa, where you're sitting right now, or your desk, to find out more about a property before you go to view it, because it may be that you don't get very long to see it. So first of all, go to Google. Other browsers other search engines are available, as you know, but Google really does deliver in this kind of search. So do use Google. Don't log in if you don't want them tracking you, but Google is the thing. And go to Google Maps. Now you may have seen a board. If you're out and about, you've seen a board with a property for sale, and you might have been able to see the street number, or maybe you've seen a property online on an agent's website, or you've seen it on a portal. It might be difficult to find that house if you don't have the address. Nevertheless, go to Google Maps and put the street address in, or a random number of the street, like 27 whatever street, and in maps, stay in the map view and put the labels on the map. So have a look around that road. Are there local shops? Is there like anything like a Tesco or a Co-op will have a label that will come up. The more you zoom into Google, the more you find the labels of the businesses that are around. So are there local shops? Is there a garage? My husband used to live in the countryside, and we moved to the big city of Southampton in 7 years ago, yeah. And he really appreciates being able to drive to the garage and drop it off for a service and walk back home, not have to stay there. That might be a consideration for you. Is there a pharmacy close by? Is there a GP surgery close by? Is there community activity happening close by? Is there green space? If you have a dog, you're looking for green areas where you could either walk around, or green areas that link up to other ones. You'll be able to see those on this level of map as well. If you have children, sometimes you do just need to get out, and the garden isn't enough, and being able to be within 5 to 10 minute walk of some open space is really useful. So have a look at this level of map view for that kind of thing. Also consider, is there a takeaway close by? You may love eating takeaway. I live in a road where we've got takeaway not far away. There are 2 houses for sale in my road, one that way and one this way. This one that is closer to the takeaway sells and resells and sells and resells. And the takeaway smells amazing. But if you're cooking something that's very delicately fragrant, you may not be wanting to be smelling takeaway. So this is something to consider as well. Excuse me. Also have a look at how long it might take you to get to work. You can do that through maps as well. Put your workplace in and see how long it is walking or driving, or whether there are bus stops. You can also see bus stops on this level of Google Map. So if it were that you couldn't use your car, can you use public transport, and what kind of access is there to that around? So having had a look at all of that, then you can go to Street View. Just keep zooming and you'll end up in Street View. Now have a little noodle up and down the road. Can you see? Well, Google will always be north-south. So if the houses are on the right of you, then they're facing east-west. And if the houses are on the left, they're facing west-east. So think about where the sun might rise. Well, we know where it does rise. It rises in the east every morning, but where does it come into the property? And does that matter to you, where it is? Do you want to wake up to the sun in your living room, or do you want to have the sun at the end of the day in the kitchen at the back of the house? Where would there be sun? If it's north facing, you'd want the bedrooms in the north and the living rooms facing the south. So these are things that you can detect from a map as well. On the Street View, you can also see whether the neighbours have built lots of extensions. They might have built to the side. You can see whether people park on their front gardens. That's very common in Southampton. There's some areas where people have taken down their front wall and use their front garden as parking. That does mean that you end up sitting in your living room looking at your car. Is that something that you want to do? You can also see on the road whether there are double yellow lines and whether there are parking restrictions. So going up and down the road, how do the houses look? Do the neighbouring houses look like they're cared for? Is there rubbish out on the street? Are the bins on the street, or are they in the garden? That's another problem with the bigger the bins get. A lot of streets are cluttered with bins now. Also, are there lots of estate agent boards up? Because even when the Street View van went by, maybe there's churn in that street and a lot of people move. That can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, who knows? But looking around where the road is, you might be able to understand why that is. People tend to move out of flats more quickly than houses. They move out of 2-bedroom houses more quickly because children come along, or someone wants to work from home and 2 bedrooms isn't enough anymore. So there will be more movement in areas where there are 1 and 2 bedroom properties. Once you get to 3, 4 and 5, then there's less movement and you're likely to see fewer boards. From the Street View, you can zoom out into the satellite view, which is like the map view, but it shows you all of the greenery and much more detail. It's a satellite. And from that, you can have a look at whether people have extended at the rear. Because from the Street View, we can see whether they've extended at the side or the front. But from the satellite, you'll be able to see rear extensions. You'll be able to see if there are Velux windows in the roof. So if people have extended into the loft, you'll be able to see dormers in the roof. You'll be able to see extensions on the rear of the property. Sometimes it might just be one. You might see half the garden filled with extension. You can also see how big the back garden is, and you can see what the back garden backs on to. So this is a useful thing to see, what's this house overlooked by? Some people don't mind having their garden backing onto a railway. That might be really soothing for you, and you might really like it. I know my husband wouldn't mind. He loves the droning sound. But if that would bother you, that's something to consider. Do other people's gardens back onto that garden, or are you backing onto a track? Are there sheds at the end of the gardens? And these are all things that you can see with that satellite view, which give you a real idea of how things are. You can also see how green that area is. If that matters to you, do you want to live somewhere that's totally paved, or do you want to have more greenery around you and other bushes in the streets and more trees and more green space? So having seen the kind of exterior and the environment and the location of where this house is that you're looking at. Another thing that you can do is go to look at what planning applications there have been. So in a road where you can see lots of extensions, lots of those might have been done under permitted development. And you don't need planning permission for that. But if you want to build a 2-story extension at the side of the house, or you want to build a house in the garden, and you want to partition your garden and build more property, or if it's some other maybe vacant garages at the end of the road were turned into houses, and those would need to have planning permissions. So it's useful to go and have a look at the planning register and see whether there are existing planning permissions on this property that you're looking for. You can use map view within planning registers as well. So if you don't know the exact address, you can just have a little look around. The way to find who does the planning in this area, I mean, if you live in this area and you know the area well, it will be who you pay your council tax to. If you don't know this area, the thing to do is go back to Google again, or any other search engine, and put in there the street name that you're looking at, followed by the word planning. And that will give you results from the council's website that deals with the planning for that property. So you're just going into the council website and looking at view planning permissions. I'm going to put links to all of these things below, so you can have a little look at how Southampton works in that way. And then if you don't live in Southampton, you can find ways you can use that in your local area. Then inside the planning portal, you can look at the road, and there will be a big long list of all the properties in the road. You can click on any one of those, and you might find the planning permission that was granted when the houses were built. If they were built sometime from the 1940s and 50s onwards, often there is planning permission there, and you can see the date the houses were built. And you can also see outline plans of the area at that time, which is really interesting. If you're looking at a specific house, you might find that there's planning permission that has been granted, but you've looked at the house from the outside and you think, well, they definitely didn't do that. They haven't built a 2-story extension at the side. Having planning permission on a property, sometimes people do it because when they move in, they think, oh, we'll definitely do that. And then time goes by and they realize they don't need to, or they don't want to, or they don't have the money to, or the situation changes and they just don't get around to it. That can be useful for you, because if it has expired and you would want to do that, it's much easier to revive an old planning permission than it is to start a brand new one. If it does have planning permission that hasn't expired, expired happens after 3 years. If you get planning permission and you haven't done the work within 3 years, then it just expires. You have to revive it. If it hasn't expired, if it was requested in the last 3 years, that could add some value to the property, because the seller is giving you the opportunity to do that work without having to do the legwork to get the permission to do the work. So buying a property with planning permission on it does add a bit of value. If you look at the neighbouring properties, you'll be able to see whether they're doing anything like building houses in the garden, or whether shops up the road are being converted into flats. And you'll see the kind of restrictions on parking. Modern properties are often, when they're built from conversions, they often are not allocated parking. That can cause you problems in your street, because just because a property doesn't have a parking space doesn't mean that someone's not going to have a car. We know that. So that can cause overspill. So having a look at what's going on around is interesting too. These are all things you can do from your sofa. And they're things that I do before I go and meet someone who wants to sell a house. And combined with doing this desktop search, and then seeing a house and then asking the seller what they've done, why they like the house, what they think about the location. This all enables me to sell it better. Many agents don't do that. And as I said, you may only have 15 minutes in a property. If you really want to buy it, you do need to book a second viewing and maybe book a third, because you do need to know a house a lot better before you buy it. But this gives you a bit of a head start. And while we're at home and can't really be out driving around and having a look up and down roads, Google Street View does allow you to do that without going out. And if this stuff really interests you and you get the bug for being nosy, really, you can also use a site called Old Maps. Old Maps tends to have maps going back to around early 1800s. And if you're looking at quite an old house, you will be able to find maps that don't have that house on, where it's all fields, or it's a farm, or there's no road there. And then if you look at the different ages of maps, you get up to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, you'll start to see more and more building happening. So that's a fascinating thing too. Here in Southampton, we have a real interest in the Titanic, and there is a map called there's a thing called the Encyclopedia Titanica, and you can go and look at that and put in your house address and see whether anyone who was on the Titanic lived in your house. That's a bit of a crazy one, but in other places in the country there might be similar things where there's historical information out there, and famous people or people who became famous or were part of some infamous event might be tracked down to addresses. Here in Southampton, there are people who are working on this project, and there are plaques that are appearing on houses with because there were a lot of people in the city who were on the Titanic, not as passengers, mainly as the staff. And there's another layer of interest to houses. Well, I hope that's been an interesting thing for you to consider, and you can definitely find out a lot more about a house without even leaving the house. So I hope you are well, and if you were getting bored, now's the time to start house hunting. These you're likely to find better information on agent websites than on portals. A lot of agents are posting video walkthroughs on their websites. These are not very easily uploaded to portals. So if you've been out walking and you've seen a house that you might like in a street that you like, have a look at the board that is up there and go and look at the agent's website, because you might find a lot more content on there. Well, here I was, an agent here to help. If all of that seems a bit daunting to you and you've seen a house that you might like to buy and you don't think you can do what I've just explained, do give me a ring, and I can certainly do something like that for you. And one more thing, if you're a runner or a cyclist, you can use Strava, or I used to use Walk, Jog, Run, but that's long gone. There's a thing called Map My Run, and you could plot running routes from a house. And that's another way to plot different walking routes to work, because often if you drive to work, it can take longer than if you walk or cycle. So that's another little thing that you can have a look at, and then you can be adding your miles if you're a cyclist, adding your miles on your commute instead of being out and socializing. So all in all, lots to look at online, and I'm wishing you a happy lockdown. And let's see if it eases, who knows. But thank you for listening, and I hope this proves useful. If you know someone who's thinking of buying a house and you think they've got this kind of time and this kind of interest in doing this, please do share this with them, because I don't think this information is out there very much. Well, not all in one place, which is why Agents Here to Help is a great thing. Anyway, it's been lovely chatting. Take care. Bye.